Greetings, everyone. My name is Lowell Wyse, and I am speaking to you today from my home in Lima, Peru. For those of you who don't know much about Lima, this is a desert metropolis of almost 10 million people located right on the Pacific Ocean. We get about 2 inches of rain per year, and maybe my favorite geographical fact is that even though we're on the Pacific, we're basically straight south of Washington, D.C. Go figure. I am so pleased to be participating in the 2019 Next Earth Conference, and I want to thank the organizers at UC Santa Barbara for providing this opportunity for all of us. It's something I really appreciate given the huge financial and environmental expenses involved in international travel. I would also like to thank my fellow presenters for what I'm sure will be an engaging and thought-provoking virtual conference. The title of my talk today is Changing Climates Crossing Cultures, Introducing Environmental Humanities to General Education Students in Peru. I'll be sharing about my experience here in Lima as an English professor and the ways I've been incorporating environmental humanities perspectives in my courses. If you're watching this, I assume you have some interest in what it's like to teach in an international context and perhaps how to teach environmental humanities content at an introductory level. And that's exactly what I'm here to discuss. While what I'll be sharing today is quite personal and specific to my unique situation, I hope you'll be able to take something away from this talk that either applies to your own teaching or scholarship, or else just gives you a sense of some of the rewards and challenges of teaching environmental humanities abroad. So I'll be referencing quite a few texts that I use in my courses, and I'll make the information available to you as a bibliography somewhere on the conference website or directly by email to anyone who's interested. And I can also provide the syllabus to my course if you so desire. I'd like to begin by explaining a little bit about my program and the kinds of students that we serve. I teach composition and literature courses for Broward College. It's a large community college based in Fort Lauderdale that serves over 60,000 students around the world. This includes students at 10 international centers, mostly in South America and Asia. Here at the Center for Global Education in Lima, we offer associate's degrees to Peruvian students who want to begin their American education without moving to the U.S. Broward accredits our courses and approves our faculty, so the experience is equivalent to studying in the States. Many of our students spend 2 years here, earn the AA degree, and then transfer to universities across North America. They tend to be bilingual in Spanish and English, quite young. Some of them graduate high school as young as 16, internationally minded, and from higher income families. As in most American colleges, our students also show a range of interests and abilities, from those who struggle to adapt to the rigors of college to those who continually impress. Teaching here is a cross-cultural experience for all of us, as we instructors adapt our expertise to a Peruvian context while also giving our students a taste of American higher education and preparing them for their major degree programs, which for most of them will be some version of global business. That's what they're into. As the only full-time English professor here, my job is to instruct students in literature and composition. Yet, as an environmental humanist, I feel an added responsibility to introduce them to topics related to nature, culture, place, sustainability, and especially climate change. My training in environmental literary criticism, or eco-criticism, along with my general awareness of life in the Anthropocene, has given me something of a mandate to foreground environmental issues and make them as integral a part of the gen ed curriculum as they are or should be a part of contemporary life and politics around the globe. For many students, my classes will be among their only humanities-based courses, and I try to use this platform to challenge them to think critically about their values and assumptions and how they relate to the world around them. I tend to emphasize environmental topics to different extents depending on which course I'm teaching. I'm wary of sounding like a broken record, of being that random English professor who only talks about the environment, assigns reading about whales and birds, and doesn't let students write about their own interests. So in Composition 2, for example, the only overtly environmental reading I assign is the occasional opinion piece, like Rebecca Solnit's 2018 essay in The Guardian on the dangers of despair in the face of the climate crisis. This lets me sneak in some climate content into a discussion about argumentation and the use of quotations. That's how I roll. In Composition 1, though, I have been using place as a broad framework, asking students to contemplate their relationships to places in the world they care about the most. Many of our weekly journal topics and major essay assignments have to do with place and nature, and we also read short works of creative nonfiction that interrogate the relationship of people and places, culture and nature. I'm especially invested in helping them to think about the meaning of environmental awareness in their home places. Lyandalyn Hop's book, Crow Planet, raises many of these issues beautifully. In this city with no rainfall, where every green thing is kept alive by humans, what can we consider natural? And what does it mean to have a nature experience in the city? A simple assignment I give them to go for a walk for an hour, observe your surroundings, and write about the experience invokes a chorus of groans, but often surprising insights that emerge in the journal entries, such as, I never knew there was such a beautiful quiet park behind the Starbucks. Or, I didn't realize how relaxing it could be to go for a walk without my phone. Another student, she had said she'd been inspired to observe nature at her home, too. She noticed a pigeon's nest outside her bedroom window and wrote, now I can't wait to watch the baby birds grow up. If I can help these city dwellers to connect a little more with their surroundings, I feel I'm doing something right. One thing I always ask my students is how aware they think Peruvians are of environmental issues, particularly climate change. Asking the question in this way seems to free them up to offer their opinions without feeling self-conscious. They usually respond to this question with a two-part answer. They say that most people here know that climate change is a problem and they learn about it in school, but that Peru is a developing country and that has much bigger problems to deal with. How can we fight climate change, they suggest, when we don't even have decent waste disposal or recycling? When many communities lack electricity and running water? When Lima's coastal waters are brimming with plastics and untreated sewage? Or when there's widespread government corruption? This, I have realized, is the stark context in which dramatic climate action will have to occur in places like this around the globe. Yet I also explain to my students that in the US, the very notion of climate change remains politically, even academically, controversial. As recent reporting from NPR indicated, a majority of American elementary and secondary school teachers are not talking about climate change in the classroom, largely because they consider it outside their subject area, though a lack of institutional and parental support may also factor in. There may be many obstacles to climate action in Peru, but according to my students, a culture of denialism doesn't seem to be one of them. It's more about how to prioritize. While my commitment to teaching environmental issues varies across courses, one particular class lets me lead my students headlong into the fray. Students who participate in Broward College's honors program, which I direct at the Peru Center, are required to take a capstone interdisciplinary honors course. For the past 2 years, I've been teaching this course as an introduction to the Environmental Humanities. I bill it as an invitation to think about the connections between real-world environmental issues, especially climate change, and the stories we tell about them. Although the scope is broad, ranging from literary texts like Thoreau's Walden to introductory pieces on environmental history and contemporary films, the course urges students to contemplate the choices we make in a world we have changed, as the podcast Terrestrial puts it. Indeed, Terrestrial has proven an effective teaching tool in this course. We listened to several episodes throughout the semester, beginning with the pilot on eco-anxiety. There's something inherently captivating about audio as a storytelling medium, and often my students are unfamiliar with podcasts going in. Many claim to be impacted by the voices in the stories, from the man moved to tears when remembering an island of seabirds dead from plastic intake, to the couples wrestling with the ethics of having children in the age of climate change. A Skype interview we did as a class with Terrestrial's creator, Ashley Ahern, was among the most meaningful moments in my career, as students were both proud and a little starstruck to be chatting with this American journalist who had brought these unexpected voices and ideas into their classroom in Peru. One of the most direct ways I address climate change in this class is to analyze the rhetorical approaches deployed by climate journalists. For this module, I used 2 pieces by Bill McKibben. Global Warming's Terrifying New Math, published in the Rolling Stone in 2012, and A World at War, a 2016 piece he wrote for New Republic. The former hits you with the numbers, such as the 2 degrees Celsius internationally agreed cap on global warming and the 565 gigatons in our carbon budget that could keep us below that limit. The latter article deploys a potent metaphor comparing the scale of the climate battle and mobilization it will require to the U.S. effort during World War II. We compare these articles with David Wallace-Wells' controversial 2017 piece, The Uninhabitable Earth, now a best-selling book, which examines the worst-case scenarios of climate predictions and begins, "It is, I promise, worse than you think." These articles not only educate students on the scope of the climate crisis, but also allow them to enter the conversation by forming educated opinions about what kinds of rhetoric might be most effective in conveying the seriousness of the problem. I'm always surprised by the strong reactions this produces. Some students resent the methodical factualness of McKibben's math article or lose interest in his extended war metaphor, while others are put off by Wallace-Wells' in-your-face alarmism. The result is a wide-ranging discussion that takes the seriousness of climate change for granted while focusing on the ethics of environmental storytelling. This strikes me as an advanced conversation to be having with sophomores not majoring in environmental studies. Another point of emphasis in this course is activism. So the general arc of the course is an introduction to basic concepts of environmental history and philosophy, then a focus on eco-criticism as environmental interpretation, culminating with several texts that highlight climate and environmental justice activism. This allows us, after first confronting the large scope of environmental problems, to dwell on what can be done about them. It seems to resonate with students here, though their initial associations with activism in Peru are not uniformly positive. Most of them imagine impassioned mobs striking in the streets. I rely on three key texts to raise the environmental justice issue. The first is Isiar Boyain's Even the Rain, a Spanish language film that juxtaposes questions of colonialism, exploitation, and representation with contemporary environmental politics in Bolivia, our neighbor to the southeast. Before viewing this film, we read about the so-called water wars in Cochabamba, where the film is set, that pitted local communities against a transnational corporation that had purchased the city's water rights. We also read Ana Castillo's novel So Far From God, a tragicomic text about an agrarian Hispanic community south of Albuquerque that becomes a locus of environmental justice activism in the early 90s. The final touchstone in this unit is the documentary This Changes Everything, based on Naomi Klein's book of the same name. Together, these texts effectively depict both the direness of environmental crises and the level of activism and optimism required to effect positive change. In the 2 semesters I've offered this Intro to Environmental Humanities course, the level of student engagement has really impressed me. The larger assignments, an oral presentation and a research paper, are open-ended, and the students have taken these assignments in some very interesting directions. I've seen eco-critical readings of films like Avatar and even the video game Final Fantasy VII. One project that stands out was by a student who is from a city in the Andes who became interested in the question of how people in different places define their relationship to nature. He then traveled to a small community near his hometown that has been affected by industrial mining and surveyed people about their perceptions of nature. The resulting paper was sort of a reflective oral history of environmental attitudes in one corner of Peru. Mining is big business here, widely celebrated as a key economic driver in the country, but as in other parts of the world, indigenous communities often bear the brunt of the damages. Another of my students introduced us to a Peruvian documentary called Daughter of the Lake, which depicts the struggle for clean water in another Andean town where a lake considered sacred by the local community is threatened by gold mining pollution. When this student, who came from a prominent business-owning family, presented his analysis of the film at a university event, he conveyed to listeners, including the president of our host university, the importance of this environmental justice issue in the face of powerful economic interests. This was a profound moment for me, as it's not at all the kind of message students at this for-profit university are accustomed to hearing. At the end of the semester, I invite students to write a 1 or 2 page reflection on their experience in the course. Now, they may be trying to butter me up before finals, I don't know, but their comments suggest they've been impacted in a variety of ways. Many of them reported a sense of increased environmental connectedness and/or responsibility, or a desire to incorporate sustainability in their future business practices. One student wrote that the course had led her to the bold decision never to work for a mining company or an oil company because of these industries' impacts on local communities. Overall, she wrote, the topics that in the beginning I thought would be boring and the same old stuff transformed me as a person. Perhaps most surprisingly, another student wrote about how the course's emphasis on environmental justice helped her to rethink her relationship with poverty. She explained how she'd been trained in multidimensional poverty and volunteered for local nonprofits, but the course gave her what she called a new grasp on poverty and encouraged her to take more of a stand against injustice when she sees it. She wrote, "Why do we not ever use our voices to be heard? Every single person in our class is privileged compared to the rest of the country, but we never do more. Most people don't like to acknowledge they are privileged. They don't like to feel responsible and accountable. But the truth is that we do have privilege, and it is under our control to decide what we are going to do with it." For this student, Introduction to Environmental Humanities became a lens through which she came to terms with her own life experience in a completely different way than I could have imagined when planning the course. In reflecting on my experience here in Peru, I've realized that I still have a lot to learn about teaching environmental humanities, particularly on this question of what kinds of content and activities will most directly benefit my students in this cross-cultural context. But I've also seen students find their own way in to the ideas they encounter in the course, sometimes making deep personal connections. And I'm utterly convinced about the benefits of teaching environmental humanities as an interdisciplinary studies course. I've also found that students will demonstrate an interest in environmental issues and the climate crisis if you give them different points of entry, presenting them not only with facts and ideas, but with compelling stories, voices, and perspectives that show why our relationship with the natural world matters, especially in the 21st century. So that's it. Thank you so much for tuning into my presentation. Please feel free to send me questions and comments. And I'm just really excited to be part of this academic community and looking forward to some great discussions as we contemplate each other's work. So thanks a lot. See ya.